Welcome to the post-qualifying debrief show here on the Backmarkers F1 Show channel. Chris Cato alongside Tyler McDonald to just quickly recap and break down the first qualifying session of 2022, which was very exciting, and we really enjoyed being live for that first session as well with all of our subscribers and fans. But we got Charles Leclerc taking the first pole position of 2022 with a very solid lap, just quickly ahead of Max Verstappen by only about a tenth, and Carlos Sainz, his teammate, rounding out the top three as well. So Tyler, I'll get your immediate reaction and thoughts after qualifying. What really stood out to you there in that first session as well? We're going to get to the front end of the field as well, talking about the race tomorrow. But what were some things that really stood out to you in this first qualifying session in Bahrain?
What really stood out, a two-horse race once again, but this time instead of Mercedes and Red Bull, it's Ferrari and Red Bull. I mean, it really seems like they are the two teams that are way ahead of the others, which is interesting to see. I think we were expecting to see that, but I don't think we were expecting to see as big of a gap as we do see between excuse me, them and the other teams. So that's one thing that stood out. The other thing that stood out is a lot of surprises. Well done, Valtteri Bottas, and well done, Kevin Magnussen.
Yes, and that is a great segue there into talk about the big surprises of qualifying in 2022 so far is Valtteri Bottas, who I know we give Driver of the Day awards, but we can give Driver of the Qualifying awards here because Valtteri Bottas, P6 for Alfa Romeo after Alfa Romeo had a terrible testing, a lot of reliability issues. Even in FP1, Bottas had reliability issues, and he ends up putting it 6th place. But more importantly, guys, look at that top 10. Valtteri out-qualifying George Russell in the Mercedes, the driver who took his seat going into this season, and now he's out-qualified him.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I mean, interesting to see how it's going to turn out in the race as well. We saw those two get into it last year at Imola. Is there going to be more controversy between those two drivers? Of course, they were competing for that Mercedes seat, but it might be Valtteri getting the last lap this weekend. At least it is for Saturday. So interesting to see with the results between those two teams.
Yeah, just a spectacular lap from him. And we should also note that Bottas was able to do that lap on only one new set of soft tires. So he went out just at the end of the session, only had one chance and one run at it, and eventually put himself into 6th place. So let's see what the Alfa Romeo race pace is going to be like. We're going to just quickly comment on the race tomorrow in a few minutes' time. But moving down the rest of the grid, the next driver that you could give possibly the award to Driver of the Day to, and maybe a little bit more deserving of Bottas, just in the fact that a week ago he wasn't really even in Formula One, and that's obviously Kevin Magnussen, who qualifies in P7 for Haas. Just a tremendous turnaround for Haas. 12 months ago here at the Bahrain International Circuit, they were dead last, they were looking awful, and now they almost had both drivers in Q3, but Magnussen out-qualified Mick Schumacher by more than 0.4 of a second. Magnussen did have some hydraulic issues with the power steering, which really didn't see him get out until the final 3 minutes of Q3, and much like Bottas, only had one chance to get a good lap in, and boy, did he ever get a good lap in. He out-qualified the Alpine of Alonso, the Mercedes of George Russell, the AlphaTauri of Pierre Gasly. Hopefully he doesn't have any lingering issues for tomorrow's race, Tyler, because he's starting P7.
Yeah, phenomenal by K-Mag, and it will be interesting to see. His car did stop at the end of turn 1 after that lap, and he got out of the car, couldn't bring it back to the pit. So whether that was a major issue or a precaution just to stop the car and not let it run any further is yet to be seen. We haven't had any team radio, so we'll see what the Haas team says in the media pen. But hopefully that means no grid penalties for Magnussen going into tomorrow's race, because I'd really like to see what he's going to do tomorrow. I mean, what if there's a phenomenal race pace behind that Haas? If there's a collision up front, I mean, we could see a Haas on the podium if all the cards are played right. And I know that's taking it kind of over the top, but I mean, if you have a couple of malfunctions up front and a crash or two between the two leaders, Kevin Magnussen will be right there.
He absolutely will be, and we know just how good of a racer Magnussen is, and he hasn't been in Formula One in almost 17 months, but he has been doing plenty of racing in the World Endurance Championship, which he was supposed to be at this weekend at Sebring, but he's now in Bahrain, so he's going to be ready to get his elbows out for sure. And just before we move on into the further down the field, we're going to stick right now into the top three. And of course, a very, very close session between the two Ferraris and the Red Bull of Max Verstappen. In the end, there was only about a tenth of a second that really separated the top three in as well. But it is Charles Leclerc on pole positions. A great start for Ferrari, Tyler, so far here in 2022. They got a 1-3, of course, split by the Red Bull. What are you expecting for tomorrow's race when these three drivers line up alongside each other? We had Verstappen-Hamilton all of 2021, but this Leclerc-Verstappen rivalry has gotten pretty spicy in the past as well.
It has. There's been some elbows out in the past, and I think we're going to see more of it as well. I think it's going to be, turn one's going to be very interesting to see who gets into there first, and how aggressive they're all going to be with each other. How aggressive is Carlos Sainz? Is he going to get a toe into turn one and send it down the inside of Verstappen? And I mean, it's going to be really interesting to see how it plays out, of course. But what I think is going to be the most interesting thing going into tomorrow is if all these drivers are complaining about the tires and how much they degrade, how much is that going to really affect the race? Are we going to see a two-stop race? Are we going to see teams start on hard tires? Are we going to see teams start on soft tires or mediums? It's going to be very interesting to see the strategic output of tomorrow's race. And I'm really interested to see how bad these tires are for degrading, as the teams are complaining about. It could be a real talking point tomorrow if we start seeing punctures and everything.
Yeah, we really don't know what the situation is in terms of race pace with these teams. Of course, this is, as we mentioned at the top of the show, the order as of the moment, but this could change all within a couple of races' time. But it kind of gives us a good idea of how the teams stack up. And just before we move on into some of the other teams outside of the top 10, let's just quickly touch on Mercedes, who a lot of people thought that they were sandbagging. They thought they were going to turn up the engines and be back to the Mercedes of old. But it really does seem like they are struggling at the beginning of this season. You have Lewis Hamilton in fifth, who is 0.6 of a second off the pole time of Charles Leclerc. Really disappointing, though, for me personally, was George Russell, who ended up in ninth, 1.6 seconds off of Charles Leclerc's time, and quite a ways away from his teammate, because this is supposed to be George Russell's strength. He is Mr. Saturday, but was quite off the pace in Q3 especially.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what he says, too, in the media pen and what went wrong in qualifying. But you're right, the Mercedes, as people thought, just isn't up there yet. And we saw how bad the porpoising, the bouncing is, how stiff that Mercedes car is. And it seems like they're fighting it all the way along the track. And maybe the drivers just don't have the confidence in the car yet to respond to where they would like it to. With all that oversteer we've been seeing from Hamilton throughout the race, and George Russell is just in the media pen right now with Sky Sports as well. So it'll be interesting. I'm sure that audio will come out just momentarily. Wow, I mean, we knew that they were going to be off the pace, but it'll be interesting to see how fast they can recover and get back up there and make it a 3-horse race.
And of course, points are handed out on a Sunday and not a Saturday, so it is possible that their race pace is far better than their one-lap pace, and they can move a couple of spots up the grid, but I think it will be difficult there with Hamilton starting. And again, I'll just make the comment, as you see in the timing screen, you see Hamilton and Bottas lining up alongside each other once again, but two different teams this time around. So it's just very funny how things really end up working out in Formula One when we thought Bottas was going to be maybe out in Q1 even.
Yeah, absolutely. We thought that the Alfa Romeos weren't going to be that quick. I mean, there is a big difference. So his teammate down in 15th position. Obviously, it's his first qualifying session, so we'll go easy on the rookie. But it just shows you what maybe the real pace of the Alfa Romeo is, and how much an experienced driver like Valtteri Bottas will play a factor in this season, learning a new car quickly and getting up to speed. But good for Guan Yu Zhao to get out of Q1 in his first ever qualifying.
Yeah, I think he did a pretty solid job, but it shows the potential of the Alfa Romeo, and also just shows how good of a driver Valtteri Bottas is. I mean, let's put some respect on his name. He is a very quick and experienced driver, and this is exactly what Alfa Romeo needed, because with all due respect to Raikkonen and Giovinazzi in the last few years, they just weren't at that level where they could extract the most out of the car in every single weekend. So very good to see there from Alfa Romeo. I just wanted to quickly put this photo up in the middle of the screen as you see Gunter Steiner extremely delighted and excited with the performance there from Kevin Magnussen. he's got a tremendous smile on his face. We haven't seen that from Gunter Steiner in many, many years now. But also, not just Kevin Magnussen, let's give some credit to his teammate Mick Schumacher. His career best qualifying of P12. He is a few tenths off of Magnussen. I know he won't be happy with that, with, of course, his teammate just jumping in the car really last week. But regardless, this is an excellent start for Haas to build upon for this season. And as we look at where Mick Schumacher is in terms of for the race tomorrow, 12th place, not a bad starting position. He out-qualified both McLarens, out-qualified both of the Aston Martins, and as well as the lone AlphaTauri of Yuki Tsunoda. So let's get into talking about some of the aspects for tomorrow's race there, Tyler. I mean, I know a lot of question marks still remain in terms of race pace and how these teams are doing, but what are you expecting for tomorrow's race at the Bahrain Grand Prix?
It's a hull up in the air because, again, I'm interested to see how these tires held up. How big of a factor is that going to be in the race? How are these cars going to be able to follow each other? Are we going to see more overtaking? Are we going to be able to see more closer racing? That's what we've been promised, and we're going to get a first glimpse of if it's going to happen tomorrow. So those are my two real talking points in terms of actually watching the race. In terms of the drivers, I mean, obviously it's going to be a battle up top between Red Bull and Ferrari, but can Haas get a double points finish? That's going to be a talking point for me as well. And how off the pace are all these other teams in race pace? I mean, can Aston Martin somehow find some race pace? Maybe they just don't have the qualifying speed, but they have a car set up for the race. Same with the Williams. So something that I'll be interested in to see how these teams that didn't really come out and do well today will come out on Sunday and see if they can recover.
And of course, some of the things that we mentioned in the preseason too, that tomorrow we're finally going to get to see is what kind of racing are we going to get? How close can these cars follow? Some of the things we mentioned even during the qualifying stream of how effective will the slipstream be with these new regulations and all of these factors that come into play. We saw some bit of back and forth racing in testing, but it's nothing like the actual real thing when points are on the line and when all 20 cars are out on the grid. So tomorrow will be very, very exciting to finally see these new era of cars and to see if Formula One have finally gotten it right and we can get the closer racing that we are expecting. I think that will be, as much as we're interested in what the order is going to be, I think that will be a big talking point after tomorrow as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And how much is this going to transition into Saudi Arabia as well? I think that will be an interesting talk for, and obviously we'll talk about that after the race and everything, but it's going to be a really fun weekend, I think, tomorrow.
Yeah, very much looking forward to it. Of course, we will not be live tomorrow for a race watch-along, so you'll have to watch a race without us, unfortunately, but we do appreciate everybody that's tuned in to our post-race debrief show and also who joined us for our live stream this morning. We will be doing some live streams for qualifying and practice sessions this year, so just stay tuned to our channel when those announcements come as well. So very interesting first qualifying session as well. We're really curious to hear what you guys have to say and think about this first session, so please comment them down below. Tyler, I'll get your final thoughts on this first qualifying session. I'll just throw mine out there. Firstly, really disappointing day, I think, from the two McLarens, who I did not expect to see so far down the order and just really, really struggling to make it into Q2 even at some points. And Daniel Ricciardo continuing with his struggles as well from last season by the looks of it. And then as well, just seeing Aston Martin really off the pace was quite a big surprise. I didn't expect them to be that far off with both drivers eliminated in Q1. Nonetheless, though, I think Hülkenberg putting in that lap time was pretty spectacular. So those are just some of the disappointments that I've seen in terms of the drivers and the teams. I'll get your final thoughts then to wrap up the show.
Yeah, I would agree with those comments, Chris, as well as I'm just really excited that F1 is back. It's nice to see it back, 23 races this year. It's going to be a long season for the drivers, for the teams, and for us. It's going to be a grind, but we're looking forward to what's going to be a phenomenal season, hopefully, and one to remember with this new era.
Absolutely, and hopefully it's going to be made a lot easier with the support of our fans and our supporters all across YouTube and other social media platforms as well. So thanks everybody for watching our post-qualifying debrief show for the Bahrain Grand Prix, and thank you to all of you as well who tuned in to watch us live. Hopefully we got to all of your live chats and all of your comments. If not, don't worry. Comment them down below in this video as well, and then we will get back to you as soon as possible. Hopefully we can get to all your comments, and also just drop your predictions for the race on Sunday. It should be a very, very exciting first race of the season. And of course, the Backmarkers F1 show will be here post-race at the Bahrain Grand Prix to break it all down for you guys with our podcast show and other videos as well. It's going to be a quick turnaround though. Saudi Arabia is next week already, first doubleheader of the year. So like you said, Tyler, the grind has already begun. So that'll do it then for our live stream and post-qualifying debrief show. Again, thank you very much for everybody for tuning in this morning and afternoon. We hope you have yourselves a great day. For Tyler McDonald, I've been Chris Cato. Enjoy the race tomorrow, guys, and we'll see you soon.